Jason, do you have a dollar on you?
Speech Night is a one-of-a-kind, biannual campus tradition established in 1971, making it the longest running event of its kind in the country.
All right, so let's get started. You get a means of connection between people or places in particular.
Public speaking is power.
You say things in different ways, it means things, and it means different things to different people.
But for us to be able to alleviate someone's misfortune, we have to first be able to listen to their problem.
Acquiring the skill of speaking before a group of people may be one of the most important.
Oh, there's a word to describe that feeling.
According to the Walt Disney Company, they currently operate from infinity to beyond.
There just comes a time when you have to stand up for your rights, and you have to stand up for what you believe, and you have to stand up for what's right.
And at the time, I just kept thinking, I was like, you got up here and you did what no one else could do. You got up here, you did what so many people were afraid to do. I was like, stop listening because you're already a winner.
First, would you send someone to prison to make yourself feel better? I probably would say no.
It was quite an event. I was not prepared to win, did not expect to win. It was a surprise and a good one. What you need to do is find a way to channel that nervousness into what you're doing, into your speaking, into your presentation. And I tried to remember that, and I guess it worked that night.
I mean, I was one of maybe 7 people who were, honored to give a speech at this amazing event in front of so many people, but it's a lot of responsibility and it's a lot of stress.
To bring this all to them, to make them feel like they're really a part of it. What are you going to say to them?
Hello and welcome to the 50th Anniversary Speech Night event. My name is Faith Prohaska, and I'm the undergraduate director of the IUPUI Speakers Lab and program director of this event. Before we get started, I wanted to go ahead and take a moment to introduce your MC for tonight, Katya Halstead. Last semester, Katya became your 100th Speech Night winner with her speech entitled Healthy Personal Policy. Her professor was Moffett Craig. Please welcome your MC for tonight, Katya Halstead.
Hi, like Faith said, I'm Katya Halstead, and I will be your MC for tonight's event. I am so honored to have been chosen as the 100th winner of Speech Night. I gave a speech titled Healthy Personal Policy. It was about how to keep your toothbrush clean amidst all the bacteria that festers our bathrooms. It sounds pretty nasty, and believe me, I could give a whole speech on it, but I'll spare you the details. So, without further ado, please join me in welcoming the Chair of the Department of Communication Studies, Dr. Christine Karnick.
Wow, what a full room. This is wonderful. Hey, good evening, everybody. I want to take this opportunity to welcome all of you scholars, friends, parents, colleagues, and guests to the 50th anniversary of our Speech Night competition. This is the 101st Speech Night, and as such, a truly momentous occasion for all of us. The Department of Communication Studies has held this event continually at the end of each fall and spring semester since 1971. Over those years, we've heard wonderful and thoughtful speeches on a wide variety of topics at the forefront of public and social discourse. Tonight promises to be more of the same, an evening of great oratory. Author and aviator Anne Morrow Lindbergh once wrote, quote, "Good communication is as stimulating as black coffee and just as hard to sleep after." I hope and expect that at the end of this competition, you'll be able to experience that sentiment. So I want to talk a little bit about Speech Night itself. This is the longest continuously running event on the IUPUI campus. You're about to hear 7 of the best speeches created this fall. And to add to this excitement, you get to participate in the evaluation process. A great deal rides on the decisions you're going to make as you listen to these speakers. The winner of tonight's competition takes home not only a beautiful plaque, bragging rights, a nice resume line, but also a prize of $2,000. So listen carefully and choose wisely. Before we get started, I want to take a minute to thank the people who've made this night possible. First, your instructors. Thank you to all of our wonderful R110 instructors. Your efforts are truly and genuinely appreciated, and I hope all of you in your classes will let them know that as well. Next, thank you to the R110 leadership team who keep R110 running smoothly each year by coordinating roughly 140 sections and 4,000 students, and who have made this evening possible. Course Director Steve Overby, and Assistant Course Director Ian Sheeler. Also, the Speakers Lab mentors, who have really been at the heart of putting all of this together, and who I believe most of you know through your workings in the Speakers Lab. And then finally, I want to thank and commend you, scholars, R110 students, for making a valuable investment in your future by completing this course. Engaging in smart, clear, informed oral communication is a gift that you will use throughout your lives. The skills you've acquired will help you professionally and personally, regardless of your major. However, for those of you who have not yet committed to a major, I have just 2 words for you: communication studies. A communication studies degree can provide you with knowledge and a set of skills that are critical to organizations and transferable between organizations and even careers. Don't believe me? Look at sought-after majors and skills listed on Indeed and Career Builder. I guarantee you'll be surprised at how often you'll see communication and communication studies. Another possibility you may want to consider is the new BA in Applied Theater, Film, and Television, just launched this semester. If you have an interest in either theater, film and television studies, or even media production, I'm happy to announce this new degree in the School of Liberal Arts, in which will give you a great start in these fields. On the other hand, even if you have a major other than communication studies, and wonderful at that, You may want to consider one of our minors. We offer 6, including organizational and corporate communication, media arts and production, health communication, persuasion, and theater. If you look up soft skills that employers look for in potential employees on monster.com, you'll see that number 1 on their list is communication. Both written and verbal communication skills are, quote, of the utmost importance in the workplace because they set the tone for how people perceive you. They also improve your chances of building relationships with coworkers, end quote. And then further, workers are more productive when they know how to communicate with their peers. If you can clearly express the who, what, when, where, why, and how of a project, you'll be a hot ticket, end quote. And then finally, their advice on how to gain these skills, flat out, take public speaking. So congratulations, you've done just that. So don't pack away or throw away, oh gosh no, what you've learned this semester. Keep this material close by. Remember what a good introduction looks like, what it should accomplish. Remember how an oral argument should be structured, how to transition between points, and how to summarize for the listener so they know what to take away from your words. You've been provided a great framework through which to communicate your ideas when you leave here and leave the university. Use it. You'll be glad you did. Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce the Dean of the School of Liberal Arts, Dr. Tamala Eitle, who would like to offer a few words of welcome. Thank you.
So thank you, Dr. Karnick. And thank you all for being here tonight. I cannot tell you, I got here in January, and I believe this is the first full auditorium that I have spoken before since my arrival, and it's making me warm and fuzzy inside to see all of your faces out there in the audience today. So I am so glad to see you here, to join the legacy of 50 years of R110 students. So over the course of the semester, our wonderful instructors challenge students in many ways to be more effective and persuasive speakers. The 7 speakers that you're going to hear tonight have improved their messaging and delivery with the help of those thoughtful instructors and their peers. They represent more than 1,500 students who took speech communication in fall 2021, 1,500. Those students will be prepared to communicate more effectively in their courses and as they advance in every imaginable career that they might choose. The R110 students speaking tonight want to be part of positive change. They want to be part of solutions in the world. The students will speak about topics that they care deeply about, hoping that we will leave today caring deeply about those topics too. So think about that, right? This is not just their speech, it's their passion. And I hope we're gonna hear all of that tonight. I want to congratulate the speakers tonight for getting to this stage for the 101st Speech Night competition. I also want to thank the instructors who teach R110 and everyone who works in the Speakers Lab who's been meeting with the students often throughout the whole semester to help them improve, to help them learn, and to help them prepare, whether they're on the stage tonight or not. Our faculty and staff in the Speakers Lab and for R110 are committed to helping each student find their voice and hone their speaking skills. Now, I have to say, R110, the Speakers Lab, and Speech Night would not be possible without the work and enthusiasm that Mr. Stephen Overby provides. He's a gift. He manages all of this, puts it all together, and we are so grateful for him and for Ian Sheeler. I thank them for their commitment to developing the next generation of gifted speakers, which I am confident all of you will be after this training. So before we move on to the actual program that you're here for, I want to speak to all of the students in the audience about an exciting opportunity that the School of Liberal Arts provides to students in other schools at IUPUI. The liberal arts, they cultivate curiosity and help you develop knowledge about a range of important subjects, current events, and social issues. The liberal arts challenge you to be open to the perspectives of those whose experiences differ from your own or with whom you may actually disagree. They help prepare you to create meaningful relationships with others. The liberal arts encourage many things: curiosity, humanity, humility, that will help you live an enriched and fulfilling life, in addition to building knowledge and skills that make you stand out among other applicants as you apply for your first job or your fifth job. Through the Liberal Arts Dual Degree Advantage program, you can add a degree in the liberal arts as you are completing a first degree in any school at IUPUI. A second degree without any additional cost in 4 years. That's a really good deal. And for those of you who are majoring in one of the schools that awards a Purdue University degree, by adding a degree in the liberal arts, you could add to that an IU degree. Right? So two for one. So think about this. If you study one of the health professions, imagine adding a second degree in medical humanities, Africana studies, creative writing, or something like anthropology. If you study psychology or neuroscience, you might want to add a second degree in sociology, religious studies, or literature. If you study engineering, we encourage you to consider adding a second degree in a language or global international studies. If you study business, public policy, or environmental science, how about a second degree in philosophy, economics, geography, communication studies, or political science? The potential combinations are truly endless, and a liberal arts advisor is really ready here to talk to you about what you are passionate about and help you chart your course to make a plan so that you can complete those 2 degrees in 4 years. So thank you all for being here tonight. And I just want to say, now we're off to the main event, which is what you're all here for, the 101st Speech Night competition. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Karnick and Dr. Eitle. Now, before we bring our first speaker to the stage, I'd like to take a few moments to go over the judging and voting process with each of you. Okay. Inserted in your program, you can locate the judging sheet that will be used by each of you tonight to judge and select our winners. Please take the judging sheet out of your program and follow along with me as I review how to judge and vote for our speakers tonight. On this form, there is a place for you to score each contestant out of 10 in a variety of categories, including the proper Monroe format, citations, speech delivery, etc. We ask that you score fairly and consistently, so if you start to judge harshly, continue to judge harshly throughout the competition. After all 7 contestants have given their speech, we will project the SurveyMonkey link on the screen with a QR code. At that time, you will vote by ranking the contestants from 1st to 7th place. And once all the scores are tabulated and the time penalties are put into place, we will announce 3rd place, 2nd place, and our 50th anniversary speech night winner. Now let's meet the 101st speech night contestants. Thank you.
My name's Jacob Stewart.
Ginger Miller.
Lisa Harrell.
Abigail Walton.
Jacy Thomas.
Alexander Toms.
Bailey Smith. I'm feeling pretty excited.
I came into the competition a little bit nervous.
I just kind of went for it just to try it, so really happy.
I'm a little nervous, but I'm really excited to be able to move on.
I feel great.
I feel honestly like a rush, like a relief, and I'm like, oh my God, I have speech nights. So I'm excited though.
I'm super excited and also super nervous for speech night finals.
Not to worry about the 3,000 people looking at me.
Probably just to relax a little bit more than I did tonight.
Just to not stress so much.
Make sure that you know exactly what you're gonna say.
Be confident and to trust yourself.
Remain calm.
Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath. Slow it down. Don't be a Dory, and you got this.
I didn't expect a whole lot going into it. I figured I'd just write the speech, do my best, hopefully get an A on my assignment. So I was pretty excited when I heard that I'd won semifinals and gotten into semifinals at all. Now that I'm a finalist, I'm pretty excited.
The scholarship is pretty compelling.
I wanted to do speech night because my teacher told us about it, and once I heard scholarship, I was kind of like, oh, okay. So, yeah, I definitely was like, I can't miss an opportunity like this.
In my class, like a lot of my classmates were encouraging me to try it out. They thought that I would be good at it, and even my professor was really encouraging. So I just thought, why not? Why not try it?
Professor Shannon mentioned the topic of the Monroe's motivated sequence speech, and immediately I thought about the topic of the stigma behind eating disorders, and I knew it was a topic that everybody had to hear.
Well, I have had some good runs of speeches up to this point, and positive influence from my instructor has led me to this point to participate in the speech night.
Honestly, my first year seminar, just being like so supportive from like my first speech, I just want to shout out to them so much because I would not have the courage to speak right now and do what I do. So really it was my first year seminar, my support, and Miss Metcalf that really like, you have that potential, and so I just took that in motivation, put it into my speech.
I hope you enjoy my speech. I truly believe in what I'm talking about, so I hope some change can be enacted through me speaking on speech night.
Everybody in the audience is able to accept all of our speeches tonight with an open heart and mind, and hopefully learn something from them and then apply it to your own life if it's applicable.
Thank you for coming, and I really hope that you enjoy all these wonderful speeches tonight.
It took a lot of courage to come up here and speak about the stigma of eating disorders because of my own personal experience with one, and that if you put your mind to it, you can do anything in your comfort level, even if it's something that you normally feel uncomfortable talking about.
I hope that you all enjoy my speech today.
I want to say thank you for anyone who has donated or advocated for Make-A-Wish and continues to raise awareness for it. Thank you so much. We wouldn't be here without y'all. Thanks for listening.
Okay, now for the main event. Our first speaker of the night is Lisa Harrell. She is a freshman majoring in Spanish and wants to work with nonprofits after graduating. One fun fact about Lisa is that she's traveled to all 50 states. She takes R110 with Professor Teresa Tackett, and her speech is entitled, Use Less Plastic. Let's all give a warm welcome to Lisa Harrell.
Hi, my name is Lisa Harrell, and today I will be talking about the problem of plastic production. According to National Geographic, as of 2015, more than 6.3 billion tons of plastic waste was generated. What's even worse though, only 9% of that was actually recycled. And I'm sure we've all heard the phrase reduce, reuse, and recycle, but have you actually taken that seriously? I myself am a huge advocate for doing what I can to save our planet, and I would encourage you all to do the same. Today, I will be speaking to you all about the problem of plastic production and the effects that go along with that, what we need to do to counter those effects, and some simple changes that we all can make in our own lives in order to use less plastic. According to National Geographic, again, they calculated in 1950 that 2.1 million tons of plastic was produced. But when we fast forward to 2015, that number increased to 406 million tons of plastic that was produced. Plastic production in general is harmful to our environment, and this environmental center at the University of Colorado stated that plastics break down continually into smaller and smaller pieces called microplastics, but they never fully decompose. And furthermore, plastics are created with fossil fuels, and the process emits lots of greenhouse gases into the air that we breathe. Because plastics are not biodegradable, much of it accumulates in unwanted areas, namely the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. This trash island is located in between Hawaii and California, and the website iberdrola.com stated that the size of this trash island was 3 times the size of the country of France. It's often referred to as the 8th continent because of its great size. Not only is this plastic taking up ocean space, but it's also harmful to our animals as well. Biologicaldiversity.org stated that thousands of seabirds, sea turtles, seals, and other marine mammals are killed each year from ingesting or becoming entangled in these plastics. And National Geographic actually calculated that a reported 700 species have become entangled or have ingested the plastics in that trash island. Microplastics are not only harmful to our environment and our animals, but they can also be harmful to our health as well. How would you feel if I told you that you might have plastic inside of you right now? Well, according to consumerreports.org, humans can consume up to a credit card's worth of plastic each week, just from what we're eating, drinking, and even the air that we breathe. This is a problem because plastics are created with thousands of toxic chemicals, such as bisphenols and phthalates. And what's even worse is that those toxic chemicals can actually leak into anything even touched by plastic, like all of the items shown on this slide that many of us use on a daily basis. Yikes. As you can see, plastic has created lots of problems for us in our environment, animals, and our own health as well. So what are some ways that we can counter those effects? Well, the obvious answer is to reduce, reuse, and recycle our plastics. Reducing and reusing go hand in hand when it comes to using less plastic. And that can look like using a reusable water bottle or using reusable bags instead of plastic ones. But there's some other ways that you might not know about. First, you can buy things in bulk rather than buying lots of individually packaged items. Also, recycling plays a huge part in the problem of plastic pollution. However, bottles and packaging items are some of the most common things that get thrown away rather than recycled, especially with the holiday season coming around the corner. Many people simply don't recycle because they don't want to pay the extra cost that the government charges them to come pick it up at their house. But a simple solution to this is just to take your recyclables to the nearest park, as many of them have spots to recycle for free. And this is something that my family has done for years. With all of that being said, however, the easiest way to use less plastic and keep those microplastics out of your body is simply to use less plastic. These are some ways that you can use less plastic to keep those microplastics and toxic chemicals out of your body. First, store your food in non-plastic containers, such as glass. Second, heat your food up in or on the stove rather than microwaving it in a plastic container or plastic packaging. Next, vacuum your house regularly, because this came as a shock to me, but much of the microplastics that we ingest are actually in the dust in our own homes. Fourth, drink tap water rather than bottled water, obviously. And last, eat fresh foods as much as possible. You might still be wondering why this is so important. Well, for one, our environment would look a lot different if we took those steps to counter the effects of plastic production. EPA.gov actually lists several benefits to using less plastic, such as an overall reduction of pollution, a limit on greenhouse gas emissions, and a saving of energy. Furthermore, USA Today calculated that if every person recycled just one piece of plastic, those materials could be used in creating 28,906 park benches, like the one shown on the screen. And that just goes to show you the immense power that recycling can actually have. Not only can using less plastic, reducing, reusing, and recycling our plastics help our environment, but they can also benefit you personally as well. First, you can save money. The waterproject.org calculated that the average American spends about $100 per year per person on just bottled water. And to put that into perspective, if this were my family, we'd be saving $600 a year simply by not purchasing bottled water. What's even more important, though, is using less plastic will help to reduce the toxic chemicals from entering your body. The Center for International Environmental Law stated that the chemicals used in producing plastic can lead to cancer and can also have health impacts neurologically, reproductively, and developmentally. So, I would like to leave you all with some simple changes that you can make in your own lives in order to use less plastic. First, use a reusable water bottle rather than purchasing bottled water. Second, say no to straws when you're out at restaurants or in the drive-thru somewhere. Third, bring your own silverware places rather than using the plastic ones that you're just going to throw away after one meal. And last, bring reusable bags with you to the grocery store rather than using the plastic ones that oftentimes get thrown away. These might seem like small changes to you, but they'll actually make a big difference in our environment and possibly your own life as well. Today, I've spoken to you all about the effects that plastic has created in our lives, some ways that we can counter those effects, and some simple changes that you can make in your own life in order to use less plastic. Using less plastic won't only save the turtles, but it might also save you from dangers to your health and well-being. Thank you.
Speaker 2 tonight is Abigail Walton. She's preparing for a career in orthodontist by majoring in biology with a chemistry minor. She also has great experience by working in a dentistry for over a year back in her hometown in Portage. Her professor is Katie Shannon, and her speech is entitled Providing Education for Domestic Violence at IUPUI. Please join me in welcoming Abigail Walton.
Hi, first of all. According to Safe Horizon, a domestic violence support website, over half of domestic violence victims have experienced emotional, physical, or verbal abuse by the age of 25. Now, how many of you guys are under the age of 25? That's what I thought. As I look around, I notice that the majority of you required to be here are CommR 110 students, Speakers Lab mentors, or professors. Now, 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men have experienced some sort of domestic violence at some point in their lifetime. Their lifetime, meaning that none of you are truly safe, and makes this topic that much more important. I have researched domestic violence and all of its messed up facts, and it means something to me as a freshman going into a whole world of unknowns, and it should mean something to you guys because you guys can be affected at any time of your life. Domestic violence is an extremely relevant problem, and I believe that we as a community can work together to solve this issue. Domestic violence can be characterized by emotional, physical, or verbally abusive acts in a relationship. This may be used to gain power over the other, which is extremely detrimental, no matter the person, no matter the age. According to the Domestic Violence Network, 40.4% of women and 26.8% of men are victims of domestic violence in Indiana. In 2018, there were over 13,000 calls made to local shelters, and in 2019, there were over 15,000 calls made to local shelters in central Indiana alone. In 2014 to 2015, there were approximately 716,000 cases of domestic violence reported, and there were over 582,000 cases that went unreported. which means of the cases, the 45% of cases that went unreported, there was a victim laying there, helpless. Amnesty.org is a website that talks about domestic violence victims and their stories, and this is a woman named Kirby. Kirby felt stuck in her domestic violent relationship because she was having a baby and she wanted her baby to have a father. After a night of abuse that resulted in Kirby being choked and thrown around, she filed a restraining order. Once that restraining order ended, she decided to file another one, but took it away quickly because of the threats that her ex-partner was making towards her. She felt as if she was still stuck in her domestic violent relationship. When she decided to reach out for help, she felt dismissed and like she was being chained down. Then she decided to take a stand for not only herself, but others too, and start educating others. And at this point, she finally felt as if her chains had been broken. Our next story comes from a woman named Elizabeth. And not only did Elizabeth get affected by domestic violence, but her daughter was too. Elizabeth got a phone call one day from her daughter crying, saying that Elizabeth's partner had threatened to hit her in the head with a hammer. Right then and there, Elizabeth filed a restraining order, but took it away about a month later because she did not think that he would actually hurt them. But on January 13th, their lives changed forever. After Elizabeth was laying on the ground from being shot in the face, she overheard a police officer say, "Oh, just a domestic violence case," while her daughter was lying 5 feet away from her, dead. Now, there's no such thing as just a domestic violence case. This is a problem that needs to be solved and not dismissed. Elizabeth now advocates for others that they are not in this by themselves. Now that you know the severity of domestic violence, we all need to be educated before it is too late. The signs of domestic violence may be easily missed from person to person because they may not always be exemplified. One thing that can help raise awareness is by implementing a course here at IUPUI. This would be designed like our Learning with Integrity course that I know all of us COMR 110 students had to take. Within the course, there will be videos ranging anywhere between 10 to 15 minutes that go over the signs and educate those on domestic violence. After the videos, there will be a handout that can be saved to any device explaining the signs of domestic violence. According to the Department on the Status of Women, some of these signs may include distress, isolation, acting unusual, dressing unseasonably, acting fearful around their partner, and/or having a controlling partner. In relationships, there are red flags that tend to be dismissed. And in some cases, according to the hotline.org, these tend to be dismissed due to the feeling of love, their past, or what they may have together like children. Or in Elizabeth's case, she ignored the red flags because she didn't think that he would ever hurt them. But in reality, she was paying attention to his charm rather than the true abuse already happening. Now, not only will this course provide education and awareness, but it will also help those that are suffering. People that are in domestic violent relationships may not know how to reach out for help or are afraid to do so because they do not know what is going to happen. In the course, there will be an anonymous survey that people can take with questions pertaining to domestic violence. If somebody is taking that survey and they get flagged, they will be provided links to local shelters, the number to the hotline, and ways to reach out and people to reach out to for help. Now, we need to be educated on this, and it can help provide a solution before it is too late. So, when we think about intimate relationships, it tends to be that domestic violent relationships are most likely to be intimate. When we see that, we think about how people who are in intimate relationships that have suffered from a domestic violent relationship, it is extremely hard for them to go back to that relationship because of the trauma that they have endured. So knowing how to help those that have experienced that kind of trauma will help them feel a sense of security as the person that they thought loved them turned around to hurt them. Knowing how to provide reassurance as well can instill to them that it is not their fault and they should not be the ones to blame. Implementing a course at IUPUI can help save a lot of people from a lot of pain. With the Imagine a world where people like Elizabeth would not have to continually suffer from what their abuser did to them. Elizabeth still suffers medically from being shot in the face. Elizabeth would not have to stand up in front of others to prove to them that they are not alone. Elizabeth's daughter would still be here with a life, a future, and a voice. People of all ages would not have to live in fear of domestic violence. People would not be afraid to fall back in love after being traumatized from somebody that they thought loved them. People would not have to live in constant self-doubt and debating about their self-worth due to domestic violence ever again. Now, as I'm sure you guys have all received the emails regarding Pamela Wynn as IU's first female president, I want to send an email back on how we need to provide education for domestic violence here at IUPUI. A majority of us are in that age range of new people, new relationships, and new beginnings, and we need to be educated. So scanning the QR code on the screen right now and filling out the form will give me an idea as to how many people wish to be educated at IUPUI for domestic violence. And if you wish to physically join me on this journey right now, physically stand with me right now. Thank you, guys. You may be seated now. Tonight, I talked about domestic violence. Implementing a course here at IUPUI will not only help those that are bystanders, but it will also help those that are suffering. While domestic violence can go unnoticed, do not be afraid to reach out and ask for help. Do not be afraid to approach those that show the signs. Be the somebody to see something and do something. Never let domestic violence go unnoticed, because you can all save a life.
Our third speaker of the night is Bailey Smith. Bailey is majoring in interior design with plans to start her own design business. One fun fact about Bailey is that she has not one, but 2 golden retrievers. She has her professor is Katie Shannon, and her speech is entitled 52 Minutes. Let's all give a warm welcome to Bailey Smith.
"52 minutes. I want you to think about what this time period means to you. 52 minutes. During these precious minutes, you could watch an episode of your favorite TV show. You could sit down and study for that big test you have next class. You could spend time with a loved one or a friend you haven't seen in a while. But there's a prevailing statistic that defines this abstract idea of 52 minutes, and it's deeply frightening to me. 10,200 deaths each year are the direct result of an eating disorder. That's 1 death every 52 minutes. This statistic is from the National Association for Anorexia Nervosa and Associated Disorders, an organization informing millions about eating disorders and providing support services for those struggling with one. I've had an eating disorder for about 4 years now, as well as extensively researched what eating disorders are. And while I still struggle with it daily, I know that it controls my life and I can't continue to let it take the lives of my peers. The crisis that is the presence of eating disorders will continue to harm the mental and physical health of our loved ones if society doesn't find a way to reduce the stigma and help those suffering in silence. Today, I will talk about the effects of eating disorders, what will happen if we do or don't solve this problem, and what you can actively do to help. Eating disorders are more prevalent than ever in the lives of our peers, the lives of our classmates, our friends, and maybe even your own life. No matter how much you look past or push off the idea that you or someone you know is fighting this brutal mental game, it won't ever make it go away. An eating disorder itself and the negative relationship with food is very hard to overcome and never completely disappears from someone's life. The trauma and negative mindset can haunt people for years. Amy M. Karnick from the Multi-Service Eating Disorder Association mentions in the article, "Do Eating Disorder Thoughts Ever Go Away?" that when entering recovery, many people often wonder if the thoughts will remain. The answer is yes and no. The thoughts may show up, but how they experience the thought and how they choose to respond will change. This can be a lifelong battle for so many people within our community. While there are numerous fantastic resources out there informing society about eating disorders and providing support services for those struggling with one, the stigma surrounding them never fails to harm the push for change and improvement. How individuals respond to intrusive thoughts is dependent on the ability to find a supportive community, which is all of you sitting here today. So many times when someone mentions they have an eating disorder, there's a silence that settles around the room. There's a time of judgment, confusion, assumption, misunderstanding, and victim blaming. Ellie Pike from the Eating Recovery Center recalls that over 70% of those suffering with eating disorders will not seek treatment due to stigma. If we don't encourage those who know with eating disorders to find help, how will we ever benefit our community? We can't ignore the suffering of our peers just because of the uncalled for judgments and assumptions society develops. We can't encourage the silent fighting of this mental illness, which produces an environment for it to fester and grow. So what does society need to do to prevent the stigma surrounding eating disorders? Society must step up to gain knowledge, support, and help heal those who are fighting the daily battle of an eating disorder. We can actively help those who need it by destigmatizing the box eating disorders are placed in. Alex Curtis from the National Eating Disorder Association mentions in the article, "Remove the stigma and welcome the voices of those who are struggling," how an eating disorder itself is difficult enough to battle on its own, and the stigma associated with them makes the journey to becoming a warrior that much harder. Eliminating the stigma surrounding eating disorders will reduce the potential amount of shame or fear that someone could have while fighting for recovery. Just the mentioning of an eating disorder can silence a room. So why can't this be a topic that encourages discussion, a push for a new understanding, and a drive for support? The authors of the article, How to Talk to a Loved One About an Eating Disorder, mention that before you initiate conversation with a child, friend, or family member about a suspected eating disorder, educate yourself. An uneducated support system is more likely to further harm somebody with the false information or biased understanding that can be construed. There are many organizations out there that provide accurate and appropriate information about eating disorders. We must go to these websites, research, and become informed. This will greatly improve the general understanding about eating disorders and therefore how to help those suffering with one. So what will happen if we all leave here today and continue our lives as if these past few minutes never happened? If our society continues to judge and shame those of us who have this serious mental illness, 52 minutes may decrease to 30 minutes, 10 minutes, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 second. We can't be responsible for the 10,200 deaths each year. We can't discourage just a large number of people from seeing the rest of their beautiful, wonderful lives pan out. We can't be responsible for so many funerals, for so many graves, for so many faces disappearing from our streets. We can't be responsible for those suffering in silence, harmfully binge eating every time they're stressed, throwing up every time they eat, skipping too many meals, weighing themselves every day, looking in the mirror and telling themselves, you are not good enough and you will never be good enough. We can't be responsible for what the National Association for Anorexia Nervosa and Associated Disorders tells us is the 9% of the US population, or 28.8 million Americans, who will suffer from an eating disorder in their lifetime. We can't be responsible for what they say is less than 6% of people with eating disorders attempting suicide. We can't be responsible for what they say is 26% of people with eating disorders are medically diagnosed as underweight. Imagine a world where our culture doesn't promote the skinny, picture-perfect versions of ourselves, where we don't have to scroll for hours every day and imagine ourselves with a prettier face, a nicer body, an unachievable, unhealthy goal, where students can focus on earning their textbooks rather than nutrition labels, where we can promote the reality that all bodies are different, yet all bodies are beautiful. Imagine a world where our culture doesn't promote a skinny, picture-perfect version of ourselves, where we don't have to be this type of person. Now, you may be sitting here wondering, what can I individually do to immediately prevent the stigma surrounding eating disorders? I've provided QR codes for some of the most helpful websites about what eating disorders are, signs that someone may have one, how to help those suffering in the stages of the recovery process. Go to these websites and become informed. As I mentioned earlier, one of the key factors to the stigma surrounding eating disorders is lack of education and a pattern of being misinformed. I've also provided the QR code for the Eating Disorder Helpline. If you're sitting here today suffering through an eating disorder, please use this link to receive support. I know it may be challenging, but the difficult road to recovery is worth it. Even if you don't use this link, please reach out to friends or family members. I stepped up on the stage about 8 minutes ago. What will you do in these remaining 44 minutes to fight for change before an eating disorder takes another beautiful, wonderful life? Thank you.
Speaker for tonight is Ginger Miller with Professor Rachel Turner. She is double majoring in art therapy and art education, in addition to minoring in art history and psychology. After graduation, she hopes to enter either the education field or go to graduate school for art therapy. In addition to making art, Ginger spends her free time teaching ballet and even spent her high school career training at a ballet boarding school. For her speech entitled Halting Hustle Culture, please join me in welcoming Ginger Miller.
How many of you feel as though there's never enough time in the day to get your work done? And how many of you struggle with heavy feelings of impending doom, anxieties about the future, or a constant worry that you are not doing enough? I'm sure most of you are well accustomed to these thoughts, as am I. I like to keep busy, but even still, there's a nagging concern that I'm falling behind and that I won't amount to anything. This begins to beg the question, why do I feel the need to constantly stay busy? Is it that staying busy makes me happy, or is it merely that the lack of busy makes me feel like a failure? It's time to talk about hustle culture. We are all immersed in its twisted ideals, suffering from a constant pressure to be working and achieving. Personally, I think it's time we take a step back, take stock of our achievement, and reflect on what it truly does for the human experience. Odds are, it may not be much. Hustle culture, which the Chroma Network defines as the idea that you are only valuable, worthy, or capable of success if you perform at maximum capacity at all times, runs rampant within our society. It is expected that you do whatever it takes to reach your goals, no matter the cost, and supposedly it will all be worth it in the end because success is the be-all, end-all. But this is simply not true. Rather, the metric for success is on an endless upward trajectory, and try as we might, we will never reach that elusive perfect in any facet of our lives. Sure, we might reach some goals or surpass some milestones, but if your happiness is dependent upon your success alone, then you will never truly be happy. The ability to be content is requisite for the ability to be happy, and if you are only constantly pursuing success, you will be left only constantly discontent, thus constantly unhappy. Unfortunately, contentment is all too frequently mislabeled as complacency in our current climate of hustle culture. Now, we all have this inherent human tendency to equate being successful with being happy, and as a result, most people feel a weighty pressure to overachieve. Author Vicki Abels cites a study conducted by Dr. Stewart in a high school, which found that 54% of students struggle with symptoms of depression and about 80% struggle with symptoms of anxiety. Children feel immense pressure to assimilate to the successful ideal beginning at a very young age, despite prominent research showing that this is only detrimental to them and their happiness. Furthermore, the pronounced trend of mental illness amongst adolescents only speaks to a greater societal trend. Despite a myriad of successful people, there remains a myriad of unhappy people. Social scientist Arthur Brooks believes in the idea of a hedonic treadmill, in which satisfaction from success wears off almost immediately, and we must run on to the next reward to avoid feelings of falling behind. Simply put, your best is just never quite good enough. As one begins to succeed, further success is expected of them, and this creates a rather cruel paradox in which success is nothing extraordinary, but simply the bare minimum, and anything less is utter failure. As Brooks phrases it, the never-ending quest for more and more success leaves overachievers perpetually unsatisfied and incapable of happiness. So what is this all to say? Hustle culture is toxic, detrimental, and it ultimately reaps no benefits despite persistent glamorization. It's time we take steps towards change, but how do you fix something like hustle culture? We cannot just stop striving. The answer does not lie in ceasing to strive or dream, but it instead lies in attempting to create balance between your work, relationships, and self. We cannot be everything all of the time, or any of the time really. As aforementioned, we will never be perfect. It simply is not possible. The first steps we can all take towards disengaging with hustle culture is to try to let go of that perverse fixation we all have on what others think of us. Instead, we need to focus in on ourselves, not in an obsessive way, but in a way that allows us to dig deep and discover what we truly want for ourselves. We also all must start learning that it's okay to say no, and that the word no should not be damnation. Whether we care to admit it or not, we are all mere mortals and we all have our limits. You cannot give little pieces of yourself to everything and expect to excel at anything. Instead, you need to understand that if you want to produce work that will truly propel you forward in life, the answer is not to do a lot of mediocre work,
but rather to do a manageable amount of high-quality work. Additionally, you'll be left feeling more content and thus happy because you've spent adequate time and energy to produce something you are genuinely proud of. And if you worry that saying no to a task you cannot reasonably accommodate will make you unfavorable to a superior, you must ask yourself, is that truly somebody you'd like to be working under? Exploitation only ever gets worse, and you are not as valuable as your limits. Unfortunately, if I've made one thing clear during this speech, it is that perfection does not exist, and that therefore the perfect solution also does not exist. It is somewhat inevitable that those who are staunch in their belief of subscribing to hustle culture, they believe that those who don't hustle are weak or lazy or complacent, and maybe that it's people like that who hold the human race back from pinnacle achievement. But I can still prove to you that this is simply not the case. All one must do is survey the globe to understand that hustle culture is not the only means to an end if it can be considered one at all. For example, we can all look to the cultures of Europe, where according to BBC and Condé Nast, 9 countries make the list of top 10 happiest countries in the world. These cultures tend to enjoy a slightly slower pace of life in which they can still work very hard while at work, but spend adequate time and energy with their families and taking breaks and vacations every now and then. It cannot be said that these countries are not highly successful, as they all simultaneously rank within the top 20 highest GDP per capita, with 3 other European nations joining them. So as we think about our experience in hustle culture, it is also important to remember that saying no to tasks we cannot accommodate will only make us better, more like those European countries. Psychology expert Kendra Cherry believes that multitasking is ineffective, and she believes it takes a serious toll on our productivity, as our brains lack the ability to perform multiple tasks at the same time, because multitasking is managed by executive functions in the brain. So if you truly want to produce work that will get you ahead, again, the answer is to produce work that is good quality, and also to spend time with your families and cultivate that kind of balance into your life. So as we work to dismantle hustle culture, it truly all begins with yourself, the manner in which you live your life and how you pass judgment on others for theirs. We could all stand to be a little bit more compassionate. One of my life mottos, spoken by Plato, states, "Be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about." If we can all find it within ourselves to not judge others based on the metric we have for ourselves, then societal pressure in every aspect of life will decrease, and we can begin to work towards dismantling the foundations of hustle culture built upon the notion of outperforming everyone else. Additionally, we need to begin to reassess how we view productivity, as well as structures we have in place to measure success. For example, I'm sure most of us here agree that our final exam score should not dictate the entire score we have for a class, but rather the collective work we've done throughout the semester as a whole should be what determines our score. And we probably all think we would be able to have a better and more productive life if we had more ample opportunity to take a step back and come back with renewed energy. Thinking like this is not at all far-fetched, and companies such as Google already implement it into their business model. And as we all know, they remain highly successful. So I hope that we can all come together to end hustle culture, as it's detrimental to us and our happiness, and it is not sustainable. Instead, we need to reclaim control of our lives. We need to work towards building a society that's based on compassion, balance, self-respect, and contentment, and this can become possible through something as simple as valuing yourself and others holistically and allowing space and time to explore creativity without a pressure to capitalize. I hope you can all cultivate this thinking into your own life, and thank you so much.
Our 5th speaker tonight is Jacob Stewart. He is a freshman majoring in neuroscience with plans of attending medical school to become a pediatric neurologist and researcher. Jacob spends his free time writing about science and poetry, and he can play many instruments, including the piano, clarinet, and guitar. His professor is Ian Schiller. His speech is titled "The Burden of College Debt." Please join me in welcoming Jacob Stewart.
My great-grandparents immigrated to the United States looking for the American dream. But their grandchildren grew up in poverty. My parents never thought they would attend college, and they took the untraditional route when they did. My dad earned his associate's degree online while working full-time. And my mom had her first child when she was about my age. But she used a Pell Grant to attend nursing school and worked her way through 21 credit hours a semester. My parents were strong. It certainly wasn't easy, but a college degree was important to them because they wanted to give their children a better life than they had. I'm very thankful for them. But I know there are still millions struggling right here in our city who can't even afford basic health care or food. If we were to give them access to higher education, we could put maybe not the American dream, but their dreams within their grasp. Most of us can't actually afford our degree, but we all dream of a well-paying job. So we take on debt and jump through endless hoops to get scholarships and financial aid to ease some of the burden. There are some for whom that is not enough, as you too will find after hearing my remarks today, referencing such sources as the College Board and the Treasury Department. Financial aid is insufficient to ease the burden on those who most need it. A debt-free college program would fix this by encouraging more low-income students to attend college and helping them succeed. And their success will be our nation's greatest success. We could once more set the example for what a democracy should look like if we made college a reality for the poorest in our nation. But high costs stand in the way. According to research done by the College Board, in 2019, students who borrowed to pay for college graduated with an average debt of $28,800 each. That's a scary number, and as you can see by this graph, it's only gotten worse. But we take on that debt because a college degree offers financial stability. According to the Georgetown University Center on Education and the Workforce, college graduates gained jobs during the 2008 financial recession of all things. And because of that financial stability, college graduates are able to invest, donate to charity, volunteer more, while committing less crime than non-graduates, according to economist Philip Trostel. If we could give low-income communities that sort of stability, our society would be much better off. Unfortunately, we can't just make college free. It's neither sustainable nor equitable. In fact, according to an Oregon government-sponsored report, the first term of the Oregon Promise, 60% of the benefit of their free college program went to the top 40% of income earners in 2016. Yet this program, like Pell Grants, and like our own 21st Century Scholarship, leaves low-income students to worry about room and board, books, and fees. So many are left struggling to attend classes during the day and working at night to make ends meet, while fitting in homework and studying somewhere in between. It's no wonder then that 38% of college dropouts cite financial pressure as a reason for leaving, and many more academic disqualification, according to research analyst Melanie Hansen in her 2021 report, College Dropout Rates. That burden presents a major problem. But I come to you today with a potential solution. The solution is to go debt-free. As a start, anyone whose households make under $60,000 a year should pay nothing to attend college. And those that make more should pay more, much like the system employed by the Ivy League universities. Except the government could cover the cost, from tuition to room and board, books, fees, and a $200 per month living stipend for all full-time enrolled low-income students, and a percentage of that for those not full-time enrolled. This life-changing grant would enable low-income students to attend any public college in the nation without cost, removing much of the reasoning for them to drop out. According to Georgetown University's Center on Education and the Workforce, a plan like this would cost around $75 billion per year to implement. And while that may seem like a big number, according to the Treasury Department, the richest 1% of Americans are simply choosing not to pay $163 billion per year through tax fraud and other tax loopholes. If we simply gave the IRS the resources and the funding to combat this, then debt-free college could easily be paid for. While the upfront cost would be large, as time goes on, debt-free college would pay for itself while changing people's lives for the better. If we ensured that the poorest in our nation were able to attend college, then we could lift a multitude out of poverty, and they could declare independence from government assistance and debt, much like my parents did. If nothing is done, then the divide between the rich and poor will grow, and communities of color will continue to be the hardest hit, according to the Center for Law and Social Policy. As fewer and fewer people yield more and more power, our nation will become apathetic and weak. In the end, if something is not done, America will fall behind the rest of the world. And if that happens, we are without excuse. We know the problem, and we have the means to fix it. If we gave all of America's forgotten talent the opportunity to get a degree, we might just discover the next George Washington Carver, Marie Curie, or even Albert Einstein. It's one thing to talk about solutions, but it's a whole nother story putting action behind words. This April, Senator Brian Schatz introduced a bill called the Debt-Free College Act of 2021. And like myself, he fervently believes that we ought to cover the full cost of college for those who can't afford it before we cover tuition for those who can. And his plan includes much of what I've spoken about here. The first step we can all take then to reduce this burden of college debt on those who can least bear it is to sign the petition to support this bill, which you can do by taking out your phones right now and scanning this QR code. Not only that, but when you get home tonight, make sure to call our senators Mike Braun and Todd Young and show them your support for this bill. But by far, the most powerful tool we have in our arsenal is our ability to vote. So when the primary elections come on May 3rd, make sure to use it. Because you deserve to have candidates that actually represent you as college students, regardless of your political affiliation. These actions need to be taken because the price of college is a severe problem, and the scholarships and financial aid we have now are not doing enough. If we made debt-free college a reality, then we could fulfill the dreams of many parents, like my own, to give their children a better life. So if you want to see a more inclusive future for America, together we must keep our elected leaders accountable. So won't you join me and pave the way for generations to come? I hope you will help me make college a reality for all. Thank you for listening.
Our sixth speaker of the evening is Jacy Thomas with Professor Jennifer Metcalf. She is a pre-nursing major with plans to give quality care to all children regardless of social identifiers by becoming a nurse practitioner. Jacy is also a Disney fanatic and even has a wiener dog named Slinky. For her speech entitled Bringing the Bibbidi Boppity Boo Out of You, please join me in welcoming Jacy Thomas.
Salakadoola, machekalaboola, bippity boppity boo. Put it together and what do you get? You get Genie from Aladdin, Fairy Godmother from Cinderella, and a shooting star. They all share something very special with each other, but also you. And before you ask, no, it's not your love for Disney, but instead your ability to be a wish granter. A wish who? A wish what? A wish granter is someone who donates resources such as money and time and gadgets and gizmos in plenty in exchange for granting life-changing wishes for children with critical conditions through an organization known as Make-A-Wish. Some of you may know someone who has or will receive a wish. For those of you who haven't heard of Make-A-Wish, don't worry, because I have volunteered, advocated, and fundraised for Make-A-Wish since I was 14 years old. So trust me when I tell you, you ain't never had a friend like me to show you the ropes on how to get involved with Make-A-Wish. Make-A-Wish has been giving children happily ever after since 1980. However, there are still many children fighting for their lives while waiting for a wish. Thus today, we will be discussing more in depth of this problem, the STAR solutions, the power of a wish, and how you can bippity boppity boo your way into being a wish granter. According to Make-A-Wish, for every wish that is granted, there are 3 more children with critical conditions in need of a wish. Critical conditions don't pause or stop for anyone or anything, especially a youth's childhood. In order for a child to be eligible for a wish, they must have a critical condition, which in the words of Make-A-Wish refers to progressive, degenerative, or malignant condition that puts the child's life in jeopardy. In the line of this, Charities.org reports each year alone, 27,000 children between ages 3 and 18 are diagnosed with a life-threatening condition in the United States. Meanwhile, Make-A-Wish identifies it being the nation's largest wish-granting organization. It has fulfilled the wishes of more than 315,000 children in the United States and its territories since 1980. Now, don't get me wrong. Granting a wish is an achievement within itself. But our work is never done until every child in need of a wish receives one. The success of Make-A-Wish comes from its backbone, which is their staff, the 40,000 volunteers, and the generous donations from individuals like yourself. On average, a wish can cost anywhere from $8,000 to $10,000. Meanwhile, Make-A-Wish fact sheet describes that 74% of the expenses nationwide are devoted to the mission, far exceeding the program service allocation standards set forth by the nation's leading charity watchdog groups, such as the Council of Better Business Bureau's Wise Giving Alliance. BBB requires charities to have a minimum of 65% of the expenses to go towards the cause, and Make-A-Wish goes over and beyond that to help answer every single wish. Confirming this, classyblog.org highlights that individuals make up 72% of charitable giving. So without you, a cry for help goes unanswered. Without you, a social impact organization couldn't exist and a problem is left unsolved. Children of all ages living with life-threatening conditions deal with more than enough through their diagnoses. Thus, the last thing they need is obstacles coming from their wish. Now, I know these numbers are upsetting, but remember that no matter how your heart is grieving, if you keep on believing that that dream you wish will come true. So let's get down to business to see how this will work. In order to overcome our problem, we need to minimize the financial gaps for wishes. And there are plenty of ways to satisfy this through giving back. And remember that no act of kindness is too grand or too small, especially for donations, because every penny counts. Additionally, donating also includes donating time and resources. Speaking of donating time, volunteering is a great way to serve. Everyone in here has so much talent, purpose, and skill. So why not gift it to an organization like Make-A-Wish, where it is valued? So by opening your calendars, hearts, and wallets, you're creating a difference in so many people's lives, but also yours. Can't you see? Granting a wish can change a child's life, but also yours. Compelling research done on the effects of Make-A-Wish intervention on psychiatric symptoms and health-related quality of life demonstrated the true power of a wish, and the results were astonishing. Patients who received a wish had an improvement in hope, quality of life, and a decrease in stress, depression, anxiety versus their counterparts. Furthermore, Make-A-Wish is not only saving lives, but also saving the wish kids' families of finances. In fact, the impact of a Make-A-Wish experience on healthcare utilization reports that patients who received a wish were 2.5 and 1.9 times more likely to have fewer unplanned hospital admissions and emergency department visits. These decreases were associated with a higher likelihood of a wish achieving a savings benefit versus hospital charges. So, by volunteering, fundraising, and advocating, you're allowing a child to dream big, shoot for the stars, but also your mental and physical health goes up as well. And what's so amazing about these statistics is that I'm living proof of them too. I was diagnosed with a rare life-threatening autoimmune muscular disease called myasthenia gravis, which weakens the skeletal muscles that weaken your limbs and breath. For the many years of my childhood, I was wishing, just like young Princess Tiana, except I was bedridden, bouncing between hospitalizations, ambulances, infusions, surgeries, and life support. But I was still wishing. I was wishing to stop hurting. I was wishing for purpose and so much more. And they always say, be careful for what you wish for, because you just might get it. But it was the best thing I could have ever did. My wish was to swim with dolphins, and it was one of the happiest days of my life. Best part about it was I didn't have to kiss any slimy frogs, but dolphins instead. But even more so, it was a pivotal point in my health. I had no further hospitalizations, my myasthenia gravis remained stable, but my positive outlook changed because of a group of strangers wanted me to experience something more than the hospital. Now that I've shown you a whole new world of Make-A-Wish, it's time to take action through Genie's Golden 3. Step 1, scan this QR code. Go to because Macy's Believe campaign, because for every letter that they receive, they will donate $1 to Make-A-Wish. So keep scanning. That can be up to $1 million. Step 2, go to www.wish.org to join the newsletter to stay in the loop. Step 3, get involved. Whether that's advocating, volunteering, or spreading awareness, you're breaking down barriers for children with critical conditions. Thus today, we have discussed the extreme need to minimize the gap for wishes, brainstorm plausible solutions, and dreamed of our impact through Genie's Golden 3. However, there's still a child out there wishing for your help. Don't let them wait, because you have the power to answer it, grant it, and repeat. Thank you.
Last but not least, Alexander Toms. He is majoring in photography with a minor in book arts, and after graduation, he hopes to become a photography professor. In his free time, Alexander produces music, he plays League of Legends, and Card Fight Vanguard. He is taking R110 with Professor Angela Sisson, and his speech is entitled Time for Change. Please join me in welcoming Alexander Toms.
Have you ever felt unsafe on this campus? Be it just walking to your car after an evening class lets out, or maybe taking the stairs or elevator late at night in a residence hall. Whatever the case, there's a serious danger that we face here at IUPUI, and that is sexual violence. According to the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, or RAIN for short, they found that women aged 18 to 24 who were in college were 3 times as likely as women in general to become victims of sexual violence. Additionally, they found that 21% of transgender and gender nonconforming college students have experienced sexual violence. Now, I myself am an advocate for these marginalized groups that face the dangers of sexual violence at disproportionately higher rates than people like myself. I believe it is my duty to exercise my privilege to create positive change in these areas which are often overlooked. It is clear that sexual violence is an issue that stems across our society, but it is not one that we should face on our college campus. So today, I would like to further discuss the problem of sexual violence at IUPUI. I will talk about what we can do to reduce the likelihood of these violent attacks occurring in the future. And finally, I will discuss the benefits of implementing these changes on our campus. So to begin, I would like to reference a sexual assault that took place here at IUPUI less than 3 months ago. From a WRTV Indianapolis article, it was reported that the sexual assault took place in the University Tower Residence Hall in a stairwell on September 16th of 2021. Now, I would like to put into perspective the severity of an attack like this occurring on our campus, let alone in a residence hall. I want you to imagine for a moment that this sexual assault took place in the stairwell or hallway of your place of employment. You see, it is in a company's best interest to completely minimize the likelihood of sexual violence occurring at the workplace so as to not damage their public image and in turn revenue, as well as their ability to find and retain employees. Now, I believe that this should be absolutely no different in a university setting, but there's a key problem with that. See, the problem is, we, the students, pay thousands of dollars each semester to attend classes here, so the university's finances are not truly threatened if they do not take a strong enough action regarding this issue. So now that we understand the prevalence of this problem here at IUPUI, we can talk about what we can do to prevent more violent attacks from occurring in the future. I am proposing that IUPUI install CCTV security cameras in all stairwells, hallways, and elevators of buildings across campus that do not currently have them. From the same WRTV Indianapolis article regarding the September 16th attack, it was noted that there were no security cameras in use in the stairwell where the assault occurred. I believe this to be a core issue. From a peer-reviewed article by Francis Adams O'Brien for the Municipal Technical Advisory Service, he found that implementing security cameras in small, enclosed spaces led to a reduced likelihood of crimes being committed. Additionally, he found that more cameras installed equated to an even higher likelihood of crimes not being committed in those spaces. It's a simple concept that if people know they are under video surveillance, they will be less likely to commit a crime for fear of being caught. Now, on the website of ADT, a US-based security company, they noted that police found it much easier to investigate crimes that had access to surveillance footage. I believe this to be immensely valuable with cases of sexual assault because there is already such a low rate of arrest leading to conviction with these crimes. This is demonstrated by research conducted by journalist site The Conversation, which found that only 18.8% of reported rapes will lead to an arrest. Of those, just 6.5% will end in a conviction. Those are abysmal numbers. Truly abysmal numbers. So now that we understand the how and why of this issue, we can discuss the better future we can all share here at IUPUI by implementing security cameras in our stairwells, hallways, and elevators of buildings across campus. Now, first, I believe that this would be in the best interest of the university to not only do the right thing, but also to improve prospective student enrollment as well as current student retainment on our campus. You see, our school is growing rapidly and has done so particularly in the past decade. And we would be doing ourselves a monumental disservice to be making these advancements in all other areas of our school while being left behind in the dark ages of sexual violence. Additionally, and much more importantly, implementing these security cameras will allow for much greater safety and peace of mind for students and faculty alike on the campus of IUPUI. We should all strive for this campus to be the safest, most positive learning environment possible, and this would be a great first step in that direction. Now, notice I said first step. That is exactly what I meant. This is not a one-size-fits-all solution that's going to completely eliminate this problem from our campus, but it is so important that we mobilize us and get the ball rolling to lead to more positive change in the future that will eventually eradicate this disgusting issue from the campus of IUPUI. So at this point, you may be wondering, what can I do to ensure that this becomes a reality here at IUPUI? And that, my friends, would be a good question. I have taken it upon myself to create a petition on change.org to IUPUI and Chancellor Paydar for the implementation of security cameras in our stairwells, hallways, and elevators of the buildings across campus. It is imperative that we sign and share this petition to ensure that our collective safety improves here at IUPUI and to ensure that we are taken seriously regarding fixing this very serious issue. So today, I discussed the problem of sexual violence here at IUPUI. I talked about what we can do to prevent more violent attacks from occurring in the future. And finally, I discussed what positive change we will all see from implementing these changes here on campus. This issue has been swept under the rug and overlooked for far too long at IUPUI. And it is time that we demand a change. We have the power, and we know what we want. And we can make this happen because we should not leave an evening class wondering if we will be the next victim of sexual assault at IUPUI. Please, do your part. Thank you for listening.
What an amazing group of speakers we had tonight. Let's give them all another round of applause. Now, before we get to voting, we would like to take a second to recognize our amazing faculty and staff that have worked so hard to make this event what it is today. Pulling off an event like this is no easy task, and we wouldn't be able to do it without each and every one of these individuals working so hard. Thank you. As we begin the voting portion of our speech contest tonight, we remind you to rank all contestants 1 to 7 using the SurveyMonkey link that is in your program and on the screen. These will be left up for about 5 minutes, then we will provide some brief entertainment while the votes continue to roll in and as we tally them up. Thank you.
Okay, everyone, this is what we've been waiting for, isn't it? To announce the winners of our competition tonight. I do want to introduce myself. My name is Steve Overby, and I'm the director of R110. And I'm really proud and honored to be here. And they put me at the end because they know that I've never been able to give a speech within the time limits. Yeah, some of you have had that problem too, haven't you? But I was so excited for this event to start today that when I was coming over here, I decided to go out the northwest entrance of Kavanaugh Hall. Unfortunately, they had a few more steps than up here on the stage, and I missed all of them and really had quite a fall. And some of you saw that, so I hope nobody took pictures of it, and I'm not the next viral thing on YouTube or somewhere. But anyway, I do want to thank every single person that attended our event this year. We were so pleased to be able to be selected and approved to have our event live again after an absence of 3 semesters and have it virtual. But those competitions were awesome too because we're filled with great students that take our course and learn from it. So I'm very pleased about that. I just have to also just compliment each and every one of you for moving through the R110 course, which we all started. None of us want to take it, do we? No. Raise your hand if you wanted to take speech. Let's see, I see just nobody really brave enough to raise their hand up. So that's what I always see. And the first day of my classes, I always make that comment. Nobody wants to take this course, and I understand why. But, the last day of class when you walk out that door, if you can say to yourself, I learned something and I have a better attitude about being in front of a group of people, then you have been rewarded and you have learned what we wanted you to learn. So I know there's just a week or so to go, but as we carry on our lives in the future, we're going to remember at least one class at the university, and that's that hated public speaking class that nobody ever wants to take, or the skills that we were able to utilize in our work and our careers for the rest of our lives. And that's exactly what I've done all of my career in life since I took speech here in 1969, long time ago. So let's move on, and this is the most exciting part, is to award and give the tributes that are really important to us all because you selected the winners of tonight's competition. And so let's just go right to that stage, and that is the awards. I will state that not only we stated earlier, Dr. Karnick mentioned, but we do have scholarships attached to this, and I think all of your teachers told you about that. And that is our first place winner will receive a $2,000 scholarship award. Our second place winner will receive $1,500. Our third place winner will be $1,000. And the rest of our finalists in tonight's competition will receive $750, along with a plaque and the honor that they can carry forward for the rest of their lives. And so you have picked the winners. And so let's move on and let's go right to our award ceremony. I'd like at this particular point in time, I'd like all of the contestants and all of their faculty coaches to please come up on the stage and stand in the order of the speaking presentations tonight. So keep social distancing. You have to keep your mask on, as we know. While they're coming up onto the stage, I would just like to have some housekeeping rules that after the event is over, as soon as we announce the awards, you as an audience are free to leave. We will be taking photos afterwards of the winners, their families, their friends, any of those. So if you want to stay for that, you're welcome to. But if you also want to exit after we've announced the winners, please do that peacefully, and then we'll take a moment. If you have any kind of paper or drinks, we ask you to take those with you and put them in the trash receptacles outside of in the lobby. And if there are any hats left, please take one of those if you didn't already get one. And then if your instructors require something from you as proof of attendance, we know that the final exam is coming up, and part of that is voting, which most of you did, and also putting that screenshot into the assignment. So those of you in attendance tonight have already received 50% of your final exam grade, which is awesome. The rest of you, just go back and watch last year's competition and answer 25 really easy questions that I wrote. And I'll give you the answer to one. You want the answer to the one? Yeah. Well, now you can raise your hands. Oh, there we go. Okay. One question asks you this: how many contestants are there in speech night? That's worth 2 points. And the answer to that is 7. 7. Okay. All right. So again, we want to thank. We've already talked about thanking everyone that's possible, but of course we want to also recognize all of you. So tonight we want to recognize our 3 finalists, and in third place tonight we have Bailey Smith. Congratulations, Bailey. I loved all these speeches, by the way, didn't you? They were fantastic. I was backstage crying the whole time. I just really was. Well, not really, but I felt like it. Our second place award goes to Jacy Thomas. And I think most of you know that this is probably something you'll always remember, all of these speeches tonight. But the one that I think many of us will carry with us for a period of time is our 101st 50th anniversary speech night winner, Alexander Tom. You notice I don't let them say anything because it's my time now. But let's give one more huge round of applause before we leave the building to all of our fantastic finalists this year. My final comment is I'd like to thank each and every one of you. I wish you a wonderful, happy holiday season. Good luck on your final exam with speech. You already have 2 points, or 52 points. And if you have any questions or comments or want to stick around, you're welcome to do that. But the event is now ended. Thank you so much.